Good morning, and nice to see you. Welcome to the Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Laguna Beach. My name's Noreen Kukinen, and I'm happy to be your worship associate this morning. Our service today is entitled Respect, the Case for Dignity at the Border. Here at UUFLB, we work together to provide this worship space where we can encourage each other to reach our spiritual goals. We thank Candy, who's not here with us sadly, Candy and Paul Bogdan for making our space so welcome and so well maintained. Pam Floodman, Darius Garecki, and Don West Jr. with their technical skills keep us on the air and connected. And at the piano is our maestro, Carol Cole, making beautiful music. Special thanks also to our board. Oakley's here this morning. He does so much to keep our wheels turning. Thank you, Oakley, and to everyone who contributes behind the scenes to keep UUFLB moving forward. So we're very grateful and we appreciate you. We welcome you for whom and what you are to our fellowship. At UUFLB, we strive to be living proof. We strive to embody what we say we believe, that human beings are all legal people. They all have inherent dignity and worth. To that end, we welcome our guest this morning, Nicole Ramos, Director of the Border Rights Project for Otro Lado. This organization provides holistic legal and humanitarian service and support to refugees, deportees, and other migrants in US and Tijuana. Nicole assists her clients in finding respect and justice as they navigate the legal convolutions of our present-day immigration system. We look forward to hearing more from Nicole this morning. Belief in the inherent dignity and worth of every person is the first principle of our faith. There are 7 principles in all, and they're printed on the reverse of our order of service today and can also be found online at uua.org. These principles represent the goals that we aspire to. If you also aspire to these beliefs and goals, please join us. We have a serious intent to become better people and care for each other. So you're most welcome. I think most of us have seen heart-wrenching video, excuse me, like with the video we saw this morning. There were so many scenes on TV of immigrants, many from Northern Africa, trying to reach Greece and other ports to find a better life. It's a desperation that's repeated every day at our southern borders. Those people were risking death in overloaded boats on open waters. And today, thousands of migrants face different but equally frightening risks every day as they struggle to reach our southern border. They travel through brutal landscapes with deserts and terrible physical obstacles, corrupt governments, drug cartels, and human traffickers for the chance to have a dignified, decent life. More and more in Nicaragua, as elsewhere in Central America, the risk of the journey may seem worth it. For many, it looks like the only way to escape crime, ruined farmlands through climate change, grinding poverty, and political oppression. Nearly every country of origin is represented at the border, but the past year has seen a big surge in the number of Nicaraguans arriving there. To give you an idea of how desperate life can be in an impoverished country and why someone might want to take that treacherous journey to our border, I wish to share some photos I took at the town dump in Granada, Nicaragua, where I visit often. I was accompanying a friend who has galvanized others in the community to help improve life for the people who live there. At this time, there are probably 200 to 300 people who actually live here. As we arrived, my friend Terry rolled down the windows of her car so we could get the full impact of the scene. It was bad. The vultures, the dirt, and the stink are almost unimaginable in this place. And yet people live there with the only occupation they can secure of recycling plastics and soles from shoes and things of that sort to earn a few cordobas to purchase some rice or beans. It's very desperate scene. As the Nicaraguan artist Katia Cardenal sang in her Canción Pequeña, we need to erase the borders. Springs does not carry documents to go through customs. Her wish is highly unlikely these days, but the least we can do is offer dignity and respect to those who have had so little of it in their lifetimes and who continue to suffer through a dehumanizing process as they seek a better life at the US border. So this morning, our chalice lighting will be done by Dara, who we always can call on. We appreciate her willingness to serve. The following is a Passover prayer. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. Thank you, Dara. If you have a candle to light in your home, please do so now to join us shedding the light. Our centering thought today is from our ailing president, Jimmy Carter. Please join me in reading this as it appears on the screen. I have one life and one chance to make it count for something. My faith demands that I do whatever I can, wherever I am, whenever I can, for as long as I can, with whatever I have to try to make a difference. He's a good man. He lived this life, so we appreciate his thoughts, and they're wonderful ones to try to live by, I think. Our opening hymn today is number 1015, I Know I Can. Our wonderful musician, Carol, will be playing that for us.
Though days be dark with storms and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. When sorrow heals my soul and burdens make me strong, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My sister in my heart, my brother in my song, the troubles wait at every turn, I know I can't go on. And though the journey's long, the destination is near, the troubles wait at every turn, I know I can't go on. So brothers, take my hand, and sisters, sing my song. The trumpet I know we can go on.
To the time when we affirm our spiritual goals, the goals we share as a fellowship, with the prayer that you see on your screen. This is our commitment to honor our principles. Please join me in reading these words. May we be
To be
reminded
reminded here
of our
of our
highest
highest aspirations
and
and
inspired
inspired to
to
bring our gifts of love
and
and service
to
to
the
the
altar
altar
of
of
humanity.
humanity.
May
May we know once again
that
that we are
not
not isolated beings,
but
but
connected in
connected
mystery
in mystery
and
and
miracle
miracle
to the
to the
universe,
universe,
to this
to this
community,
community,
and to
and
each
to
other.
each other.
There are words in our hymnal that remind us that at times our own light goes out and it's rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. Our time of joys and sorrows gives us space to share the good things and the bad that are part of our lives. May we remember to share our spark of light with those who most need it. The recording will stop for this part of our service and we'll go for. I feel I can tell you a corny joke today. Is that okay? Okay. There was a young woman out job hunting, and she had just sat down to be interviewed at the personnel office of a large company. Her interviewer discusses the job demands and the company's goals, and then he moves on to the salary. The starting pay is $40,000, she explains, but later it can go up to $80,000. Without missing a beat, the young woman says, "Great, I'll start later." Just like our offertory collection, the salary range of our joke has a starting point. For us, it's our individual contributions and has the potential of being significantly increased in value. That's why we contribute during our offertory to provide a greater sum for the greater good. Please be as generous as you're able in your offering. If you are attending on Zoom today, don't forget that the online links you can use to donate are readily available on the slide today and in the email that announced our service this morning. So happy the windows are being replaced, and there are always maintenance issues that require your donations in addition to what we contribute to larger projects from UUA.org. So open your wallets if you can. Paul will pass the box for donations. Please join me. You may rise if you want to, and we'll sing our gratitude for the gifts we receive.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
At this time in our service, we set aside a few minutes to meditate so that we can relax our body and calm our mind. There'll be a silence followed by carol playing to end our meditation. This prompt is from the Mayo Clinic. You may wish to follow it, or you may wish to just sit there and rest in your own peace. Please pause, take a deep breath, and place your feet flat on the floor. Really feel your feet in contact with the ground underneath you. Place your hands on your stomach and take 2 to 3 deep breaths, noticing your stomach rising and falling with each in and out breath. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes. As you keep breathing deeply into your stomach, breathe in for a count of 5, hold your breath for a count of 5, and breathe out slowly for a count of 5. Our speaker this morning is Nicole Ramos of Otro Lado, where she directs the Border Rights Project. Ms. Ramos is an attorney whose efforts provide humanitarian support to refugees, deportees, and other migrants in the United States and Tijuana through a multidisciplinary, client-centered, harm reduction-based practice. Nicole also serves as an adjunct professor at Temple University Beasley School of Law and lectures extensively at universities, law schools, and professional conferences throughout the US and Mexico regarding the impact of border enforcement practices and policies on asylum seekers. Prior to joining Otro Lado, Nicole worked for 6 years as an assistant federal public defender in Montgomery, Alabama, where she represented clients charged with federal felony offenses and death row inmates challenging their convictions and death sentences in federal habeas proceedings. She's a graduate of Bryn Mawr College and Temple University Beasley School of Law. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me this morning. I'm so glad that you've dedicated your service this morning to talking about migration and the border. It's a topic that's very close to my heart. I came to the border in 2014 from Alabama, and I am talking to you from Tijuana, Mexico. Al Otro Lado started as an all-volunteer-led effort, initially providing legal consultations to deportees and refugees that were in Tijuana. we started off with 3 attorneys and decided that we were going to take on one of the most powerful governments on earth, even though we didn't have a budget or any money, salary, an office, or any staff. But we knew what we were seeing at the border was not representative of our law, the United States obligations to refugees, as well as the best of America. Today, we have 3 offices in Tijuana, Los Angeles, and San Diego. We have a staff of just over 50 people throughout these offices, and we've worked with over 3,000 volunteers over the years. This last year in 2022, we helped approximately a little over 12,000 refugees cross the southern border, and those people weren't just coming from Latin America. I know the news has a lot of images about people coming from Mexico or Central America, but that figure represents 29 different countries and people speaking 32 different languages. What we are seeing now at the border is horrifying, but I think it's really important for us to talk a little about the history, how we got here, because this is all very tied to where we were just 75 years ago. A lot of people don't realize that Adolf Hitler, took notice of the US immigration system and actually complimented us on it and said we were doing a good job. Things like the Chinese Exclusion Act, spraying Mexican agricultural workers, the braceros, with the harmful chemical Zyklon B, because we wanted to kill any disease that these workers might be bringing in from Mexico. Hitler looked at that and said, that is a really good idea. And ultimately, Zyklon B was what was used in the gas chambers to kill millions and millions of people, including 6 million Jewish people. In 1938, the US government turned away a cruise ship known as the MS St. Louis, and it carried over 900 refugees from Europe, Jewish refugees. That boat was turned away off the coast of Florida. Canada also refused to let that boat dock. Ultimately, they returned back to Europe, and around 1/3 of the passengers ultimately died in World War II in the concentration camps. Today, what is happening at our southern border is exactly the same, except it's as if we have the MS St. Louis happening every single day. In 1989, when the Berlin Wall fell, the world rejoiced at the images that we were learning to work together. We were coming together. We were breaking down walls. We were uniting people that had been separated by the Cold War. However, during that time, there were only 15 border walls standing. And now, as a result of US foreign policy and Department of Homeland Security exporting our ideology around closed borders, today we have over 77 fortified border walls in the world. And the US government sends personnel from US Customs and Border Protection, from the agency ICE, which is immigration enforcement on the interior, to countries all over the world to counsel them on how to make very strong borders. We send people as far south as Panama and Colombia. We help them by providing them with technology such as facial recognition and DNA collection. And we train these officers from other countries how to stop people from crossing borders. In the Department of Homeland Security, there is a special unit known as the Shadow Wolves, which are Native American trackers that are using their ancestral knowledge of how to track wildlife in the wild. And they're going to other countries, for example, Poland, and showing border officials how to track human beings in those natural habitats. At the border between Poland and Belarus, there are thousands of Syrians and other Middle Easterns that are trying to get into Poland, into the European Union, so that they can claim asylum. And what we are essentially doing is we are helping the Polish border guard keep people trapped in a very cold forest. The temperatures go below freezing very frequently, and more people are dying. We have a rhetoric in the popular media that, well, all of these people are coming, where the border is in crisis. We can't possibly handle all of these people. But this is the idea that we were going to be facing mass migration is not new to the US government. There are multiple books that go through documents going back as far as 15, 20 years ago that show at the highest levels of government that we knew we would be facing mass migration around this time, that the climate crisis would really start to impact people, particularly in Latin America, making it such that they could no longer subsist on their land and they would have to seek safety elsewhere. We knew that the impact of the North American Free Trade Agreement would take the agricultural industry and make it no longer a viable profession, one that people can support themselves on in places like southern Mexico, and we would see mass migration. We have also, through our own foreign policy, destabilized governments in particularly Latin America, training police officers and soldiers and the like on how to interrogate, how to stamp out popular movements that even gave the hint of socialism or the dreaded communism. So places like the School of the Americas, which sits at Fort Benning in Columbus, Georgia, is where our tax dollars have gone in to train some of the worst human rights abusers in Latin American history. And our footprint is in some of the worst crises that have driven migrants to our border, such as the 45-year civil war in Guatemala, which was helped fomented by the CIA, such as the 2009 coup and toppling of the democratic elected government in Honduras. Today, Honduras is one of the countries we see the most migrants from. We've also invested in militarizing our southern border instead of more constructive solutions that could possibly help people stay in their countries of origin, places that they really don't want to leave. These are beautiful places that are rich in culture. They have all their family, friends, and history there. They don't want to leave. They're forced to leave. So we've invested in things like Operation Gatekeeper, which is the lengthening of the southern border wall, pushing people into the most dangerous corridors, such as the middle of the Arizona desert, which is essentially pushing people into places where they will die. It's a passive capital punishment, because we are under the belief that if we make the conditions so onerous, that people will not come. There's a great poem, there's a great line in a poem by Warsan Shire, who is a Somali British poet, where she says, "You don't put your children in a boat unless the land is more dangerous." And so the idea that we can somehow scare people into not coming on the idea that they might die in the journey, which we've made more difficult, really misapprehends the fact that where they are, they simply cannot stay because they will die. Where we are today, right now at the border, is also part of the history of our recent administrations, both Republican and Democratic. Under the Obama administration, we saw the rise of family detention centers, which, don't let the name fool you, those are prisons. Those are places where we stick families, including babies, as just old as a few days old, with their parents. And we keep them there for as long as possible, in conditions that approximate a jail that someone would be serving a sentence in. Also under the Obama administration, we saw the beginning of this policy called metering, which is essentially a big wait list, where we force asylum seekers to put their name on a wait list operated by the Mexican government, which is a government rife with a history of human rights abuses. And they cannot enter the US until the day that their number is called, under the pretext that we don't have capacity to process the people that are coming. Now, what's interesting about that policy is that it started under the Obama administration, and it was done as a response to an increase in Haitian migration. And so we have our celebrated first Black president and his administration deriving a policy to keep out tens of thousands of Black refugees fleeing a country that has been made completely chaotic and almost unlivable by natural disasters and the collapse of government. Following the Obama administration, we all remember all too well the Trump administration, where we saw policies like the family separation policy, where we tore children away from their parents who either crossed the border in between ports of entry to seek asylum, or who even presented themselves at a port of entry. We took all of those children for a period of months from their parents, and then we sent their parents back to Central America without those children, essentially robbing them. And I would submit to you, it would be worthwhile to look at the definition of genocide, the international legal definition. And there are several subparts to what defines a genocide. And one of them can be the forcible transfer of children from one group to another. And when we rob children and we deport their parents, we break that family bond, just as we did in the Native American boarding schools, just as we did when we stole the children of slaves and sold them off to the higher bidder. So what we are seeing now, again, we must always look to the historical antecedents. Also under the Trump administration, we saw a now defunct policy called Remain in Mexico, where we forced migrants, after waiting on a wait list for however many months, to then begin their proceedings while they were in Mexico and only entered the US for those court proceedings. Over 60,000 people were placed in the Remain in Mexico program, and many of them could not make it to their court proceedings because they didn't have the resources, because Mexico deported them further south, because they were robbed, because the day they showed up to the port of entry, the CBP officer decided they didn't have the right documentation to enter. And following the MPP, Remain in Mexico policy, we come with Title 42, which was a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, where the border was completely closed to asylum seekers. So we have this gradual restriction of the border over time. And with Title 42, the door was completely shut. And although the conservative pundits talk about the number of border apprehensions increasing during this time, what they forget to tell you is that many people just continually try to cross the border as many times as possible in the hopes that they can get through. And so while the number of apprehensions has increased, it's not necessarily an increase in the number of people. Today, as we are learning to live with COVID-19 and we are not in the same moment of a health emergency, it appears that Title 42 will be lifted in a few months. With the idea that it will be lifted, though, the Biden administration is now enacting other restrictions to ensure that refugees do not get to access the asylum process. One of those restrictions is a platform called CBP-1, which is on your smartphone. It's only available in the languages of Spanish and English. They have a Haitian Creole version, but it has a lot of bugs and doesn't really work. So that means if you speak a language that's not Spanish or English, you're not going to be able to make an appointment to see if you can be allowed into the US to permit you to make your asylum claim before an immigration court. So already we're limiting the number of people and the countries that people can come from. And then we're limiting people by resources, because not everyone has a smartphone. Not everyone also knows how to read or is good with technology or has the internet, or even if they have a smartphone, has a phone that's new enough to able to download this application. And assuming that someone can make it past those hurdles, the Biden administration has created a new rule which has not taken effect, but is due to take effect in a few months, called the transit ban. And under the transit ban, individuals who cannot prove that they attempted to seek asylum in a country in which they transited to that is considered a safe third country that has an asylum system, that they will be ineligible to apply for asylum in the United States. So this will limit asylum to virtually everyone except Mexicans who do not have a country to transit to before getting to the US-Mexico border. And what is ironic about this new rule of the Biden administration is that it's a recycled rule. The Trump administration also attempted to implement a transit ban. And our organization, along with a coalition of other organizations, sued the government in order to block the transit ban from taking effect. And a federal court ultimately determined that the government could not do, it was unlawful, could not do what it sought to do. Coincidentally, our organization has also won litigation, which we started in 2017 and won in 2021, which the federal court found that it is illegal for the US government to turn asylum seekers away at a US port of entry. So those that are approaching the port of entry and trying to talk to an officer and explain that they're there to seek asylum, it is illegal to turn them away. And so the US government, instead of complying with these court rulings, continues, even under the Biden administration, to look for ways to eliminate its obligation to comply with existing federal law, as well as existing international law to which we agreed. Our US asylum law, which has been in place for decades, is a mirror of our legal obligations under the Refugee Convention, which the United States signed in the aftermath of World War II, in the aftermath of the Holocaust, because we all agreed, never again shall this happen. However, that has not been a promise that we have kept. This can feel very depressing and overwhelming, whether you're working in the migration space or you're working in some other industry. And a lot of people are paralyzed because they're not sure what they can do. And so I just want to offer some suggestions of things that you might be able to do. One of the important ways that you can let your voice be known as a community like Laguna Beach that has some political capital is to organize yourselves as a community and ask to speak with the person who's charged with immigration matters in the office of your local elected officials for Congress or your US senator. Congressional officials and senators vote every year on the budget for DHS and the budget for CBP, and they need to understand what our priorities are as constituents, because the government could make the choice to spend money on social workers and medical care and investing in dealing with the climate crisis, because the US is one of the largest polluters in the world. We are one of the largest proponents of the climate crisis. So if we want to address root causes of migration, we can certainly invest in solutions that help people stay in their countries. But our elected officials won't vote on those kinds of solutions because they're only hearing information from the agencies. We need more money, we need more money, we need more money. You can, if you feel confused about what's happening in the immigration space, you can sign up for news alerts from organizations like Clinic, which is the Catholic Legal Immigration Network. And I'm happy to share via email some other ones where you can understand what are the bills being passed, what is the impact. And these alerts are written for lay people, not just for lawyers. Every new policy under the Administrative Rules and Procedures Act has to undergo a period of public comment. The transit rule, which has not taken effect yet, has to undergo a period of public comment. And you can send it via snail mail, or you can do it online. And you can write what you think is wrong about the rule, and the government has to read every single comment. You can donate. Of course, you can always donate. You can donate money, you can donate in-kind items. There's around 15,000 refugees here in Tijuana. Many are living in squalid conditions. They don't have a winter coat. They don't have socks. They don't have diapers. We have families that are living in cardboard structures under bridges. Basic items are always needed. You can challenge others in your circle that make comments that are anti-immigrant, anti-migration, anti-asylum seekers. I'm encouraging everyone to ruin next Thanksgiving's dinner with any conservative relatives that you have. But if we don't speak out on behalf of immigrants who are not here, don't have that opportunity, we're never going to combat this narrative. You can also donate your time through volunteering, and that doesn't mean coming to the border. Lots of organizations have remote volunteer options, but also there are organizations in your community that are working with immigrants. And as someone who moved to another country, I moved to Mexico 9 years ago. Didn't know really anything about it. I moved, my partner at the time was deported. I had to learn everything on my own, and it was lonely. And there are immigrants in your community, there are asylum seekers that are arriving that don't know how to register their kids for school. They don't know how to read the electric bill. They don't know where they can go mail something. And those are small ways that you can donate your time locally and make a human connection for people that really need a friend and someone to welcome them. And with that, I will close. Thank you so much for giving me your time this morning and this space to talk about this very important issue that I care about deeply.
Thank you, Nicole. You gave us plenty to think about and hopefully inspire us to action of some kind. I think it would be very useful for our congregation to find the links to that you mentioned in terms of education. Thank you. Our closing hymn this morning is Come and Go With Me. It's number 1018 in our teal hymnal. So please join in singing.
Would you like to stand? Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Freedom in that land, there will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There will be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land where I'm bound. There will be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land where I'm bound. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land where I'm bound. There will be singing be singing in that land where I'm bound.
Very nice, Carol. We've come to the time to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Let's join hands and sing our closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With earth as our mother, we are family. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace, eternally.